Hi, and welcome to another episode of Starship Gaming. Today we are going to do something a little different. I am going to tell you about how to find video games out in the wild and not buy them online. That title's a little long, so we'll think of something else to call it. So, let's get started. So, when you find video games out in the wild, it usually varies by what you want. There's a lot of different collectors out there. Like me, I collect PlayStation 1 and Super Nintendo games. Occasionally Game Boy, but not very often. And I do collect games for the newer consoles, like primarily Xbox One, but also a little bit of PS4 and Nintendo Switch and stuff like that. Now, the first bit of advice I'll give you when you're looking for new games, like Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, some stores occasionally still have a little bit of brand new, I guess you could say brand new old stock Xbox 360 and PS3 games. And sometimes PS2. My local Walmart actually has quite a few PS2 games still. Mostly Grand Theft Auto, like the 3-pack or something, and like the Guitar Hero bundle packs. Now, when you're looking for newer games, and this is advice from a professional video game hunter, I've been doing this for, actually, I started when I was younger. I started when I was about, I'd say probably 6 years old. I would go to yard sales. But when you do retail, when you go to retail stores, the best bit of advice I can give you is always check the bargain bin or the bargain section first. Now, I'm going to name a few places that I frequently go to, one of which I'm not sure I'll return to, simply because they're kind of jerks to their customers if you want to buy multiples of a game for your collection. But let me explain. So the first place I'm going to bring up is Walmart. Of course, Walmart. Walmart has usually a decent bargain section. Their prices aren't super good on some of their stuff. It may just be my local store, but most of the games, when they do put them on bargain, they're usually $9.99, which really isn't much of a bargain. I mean, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't at the same time. I mean, my local Walmart still has PS2 games. And PS2, I mean, they used to have a pretty decent PS2 section back in the day, but PS2 has not had its own prominent section in my local Walmart since at least 2010. It's been that long. So a lot of these games are still lingering on the shelves. Like GTA, the Trilogy Collection, whatever, pre-GTA 4. Everybody's played them, nobody wants them. They literally have had copies of this game. They must have had a bunch of them. They must have really thought, this is going to sell well. They have had copies nonstop on the shelf for PS2 in my local Walmart since at least 2000, I'm going to say 2008, maybe 2009. That's when I started noticing them. And they've just had non-stop copies, and they sell them for like $20, $19.99 or $19.98, whatever that weird pricing scheme is. And they sit there. I don't know if they just ended up with, quadrillions of copies of this game or not, but every time I go to my local Walmart, I always see 2 or 3 copies out on the shelf. Never fails. And my local Walmart still has its own dedicated Xbox 360 section. Not very big. I mean, maybe, at least maybe 15, 20 titles. But most of them are ones that are backwards compatible for the Xbox One, like Red Dead Redemption, Halo 4 I occasionally see. But, you know, it's just probably old stock. And I mean, they still have a few that end up out there that are, you know, are not backwards compatible. And some of them they discount, some of them they don't. Like their PS2 games, they discount those heavily, but they will not change the price of GTA, Trilogy, Collection, whatever. It has stayed at the same price since at least 2008 or 2009. My local Walmart is just now starting to really thin out their games, but they don't really price them all that cheap, to be honest. I have been to other Walmarts. Some of them do have pretty decent prices on their older titles. I've seen some as cheap as, well, for example, I picked up a sealed copy, I believe it was Darksiders. They had like 10 of them out on the shelf. I ended up scooping up 5 copies for the collection, 1 to keep and then the rest to put up. And of course they don't question that. Of course, retailers, they come in and they buy this stuff up and then they resell it online. See, I don't have a problem with that. I know a lot of places too. Target has a problem with that, which we'll get to VAM in a minute. Oh, is that a story I gotta tell? But if you do go looking for games, Walmart, I recommend, but only if you live near a Walmart that really has a decent section for that kind of stuff. If not, then you may want to skip it. So let's go on to the next store I'm going to mention. The next one I'm going to bring up is GameStop. And GameStop actually, a lot of people give them a lot of flack and harassment, but they actually do have some bargains on some titles. I mean, you know, a lot of people, they turn against them. Oh, they're the evil corporation, you know, and they're not. They actually have some pretty good bargains if you actually take the time to look around and stop sitting behind a computer screen listening to other people talk badly about them when you don't really give them a chance yourself. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they kind of have their policy on trade-ins is kind of, but, you know, you can get some pretty good bargains on stuff if you actually take the time to look around your local GameStop. I mean, I've went into my local GameStop and I've found some pretty good stuff. I know back in the day, like when they were getting rid of certain titles, their older titles, especially their PSP titles, I was able to scoop up Battlefront 2 for like $3.99, which was a really excellent deal. And there was a couple others, but they were really good deals. And I still go there occasionally. I do all my pre-orders there still. So, you know. But what I think is really cool is that where I run a local game shop, there's a GameStop within my area. And they actually send people to me if they don't have it. They don't say, hey, just go on our website and order it and send it to the store. They actually say, hey, we know this guy across town. You need to go check him out. And I thank them for that. I really do. My local GameStop has some really awesome employees. I gotta say that. They really make me proud. If I was hiring people, I would hire them if they ever decided to not work at GameStop anymore. But I would go in the GameStop. Of course, they have their sales. Check those out when you can. That's a really good way to get some new and used, you know, newer games, PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch. And they still have Wii U games, I believe, as of the recording of this video in November 2019. And occasionally Wii games, which I don't see a whole lot of those. My local GameStop just phased out PS Vita games, so I'm not really too concerned about that. I had a PlayStation TV, never owned a Vita, never felt compelled to. It was kind of the redheaded stepchild of handheld games compared to 3DS, and yeah, you get the gist of it. But I would definitely say give them a try, you know, when you're out looking for newer games, because they sometimes have bargains, and it's worth the trip. So, you know, visit your local GameStop if if you get time. Now the next one, actually I should say the last one I'm going to bring up. There's a bunch of other retail stores I could bring up, but I wanted to put it down to 3. Target. Oh boy, did I tell you a story about them? They do not want you to buy multiple copies of the same game. They give you the 3rd degree at checkout. Yeah, I encountered that. I was going to buy multiple copies of a game. They had $1.78 on the game. I mean, this isn't a new policy. They've had this apparently since 2015. And I used to like to go to Target a lot. Not saying that, I don't like them, but I think this policy is kind of ignorant. And that's just my honest opinion of that. I mean, I can understand, you have 20 copies of the same game on the shelf. Some guy swoops in and wants to buy every single copy. Why is that your business? Once that game, reaches somebody's hands, if somebody wants to buy it, just sell it to them. If it's got a price on it, just sell it. Don't limit how many copies you're going to sell. Seriously. So anyway, Target has this clearance section where they'll put occasionally electronics and video games that are pretty much occasionally crap. Well, I visited a local Target store recently, and I bought 2 copies of Need for Speed Payback for PS4, and 1 copy of a Walking Dead game for PS4. And then I was going to buy copies, I think it's called Geometry Wars Dimensional or something, and I picked up 10 copies. Now here's the thing, I was not going to resell those copies. I bought 1 for myself to play, 1 to keep in the plastic, just for collector's reasons. The rest I was planning to give out as Christmas gifts. Christmas gifts. And I get up to the front counter and the guy's sitting there and he's like, why do you have so many copies of the same game? I said, Christmas gifts? Are you sure you're not a reseller? I'm like, why is that any of your business? And that's just how they treat you. I don't know if it was just that particular employee. I later called the manager and they said, that's our policy. So I'm like, okay. So it's no sweat, but just remember, yeah, Target's got really good deals on clearance games, but if you want to buy more than 1 copy, just cut that out of your trip, because they're not going to do that for you. I don't know. It's really something that's bothered me for a while. Because it's really none of their business what you do with that game once you buy it, even if it's on clearance. If they didn't want to sell it, they would put it behind glass with alarms and lasers, and it's really not a very good policy. It's a good way to lose customers. I mean, if you didn't want to put it on clearance that cheap, you should have left it regular price. And here's the thing, there's no signs in their section back there saying limited to 2 copies. And when I asked the manager, they say, well, it's on the website somewhere if you do some digging. I'm like, I don't want to do some digging. I want to find out why you can't sell me all the copies. I was going to buy them for Christmas. So, now that I've got that ran off my chest, so it's starting to get hard for hunters to do stuff. I mean, Target's not the only one that has that policy. I'm sure there's other places that do. They won't let you buy more than 1 because of people reselling them. Now, here's the funny thing. The game that I was going to get, they had $1.78 on, like the 10 copies of it. They let me have 2. It's only worth like $3.99. I mean, yeah, I understand you want to be fair to other people and let them have their chance to get a copy, but you have like 40 copies of this lingering on the shelf. And you've probably sold what? Maybe 5 other ones other than the 2 I got in the past year, maybe? So it's just kind of a messed up policy, but I'm not going to go into it any further. They got really good stuff there. I love Target. Target's one of my favorites. I'm not saying that I'll hold that against them. I'm a huge fan of Target, but I just think it's kind of a jerk policy for clearance. But I do love going there. I may go Christmas shopping there this year. I was actually going to pre-order a game, the Steelbook version of Pokemon Sword and Shield. And apparently the guy in electronics didn't know how to do that. I'm guessing he was a new employee. I didn't hold it against him. I'll just go to GameStop and do my pre-order of that. And, but it's life. But I've been ranting a little bit too long about that. Anyway, they have this clearance section, and you can get, if you want to get a game, they give you the third degree if you buy more than one. So here's the thing. If you go there, just buy one copy if it's on clearance. Otherwise, they get really weird about it. Certain employees are kind of paranoid. I don't think Walmart has a policy like that. I don't know about Best Buy. To be honest, this is the honest truth. My area has had a Best Buy since only 2010. I have only been in there one time, and that was to look for a computer part. And I don't know what kind of policy they got on clearance stuff, because I've never really shopped there. I plan to this year, though. I was always more of a GameStop, Walmart, Kmart kind of person until Kmart stopped selling games. That really depressed me. But certain places, they'll let you buy multiple copies and you can put them up in your collection. But Target, if you're going to do that at Target, that's a no-go. So that may be somewhere you want to skip if you want to do multiple copies, if you want to look for just one game. They do have a pretty decent gaming section, at least my local Target does. But I'd say give it a try. If you're hunting for games, they can be good for some things and not so good for others. But that's my opinion. Of course, a lot of other people have opinions about Target, for multiple other reasons. But just give it a try if you want to. I'm not saying that it's bad to go there. Their whole clearance policy, if you're going to buy them from clearance. If you're just buying them outright, then that's perfectly fine. But they, like I said, they give you the third degree, or you resell it, and it just kind of, it bugs me. It really upsets me. The first time it happened, it really, recently, it happened. Yeah, it happened pretty recently. I was very upset. And I very rarely get upset. But those were going to be Christmas gifts, and I was going to give them to relatives that have PS4s, and I was going to give them to friends. There was one particular person I was going to give one to. He was, really wanting one. I'll still get him a copy of it. I'll pay full price for one. I mean, it's no big deal. But just if you go there, don't buy multiple copies of anything. Just buy the one copy and leave it at that. They do have pretty good prices there, so I recommend them for that. But in terms of clearance stuff, just buy the one copy and leave it at that. Now, I have went on pretty long about retail stores. I'm going to tell you about how to find retro games, and we're not going to use the internet for this one. Buying on the internet, and this is the best advice you can hear, buying on the internet, eBay, Amazon, all of them, buying a game on the internet, I should specify, is one of the single riskiest things that you can do for a number of reasons. Number one, when you buy cartridges, make sure they are authentic. A lot of these Chinese fake ones are going around. They're Chinese made. For example, I get them in my store all the time. People buy them online for they'll buy rare games like Earthbound and Conker's Bad Fur Day and stuff like that. And they'll bring them to my shop. They'll buy them online for like $8.99, $9.99, something like that. From China, they'll wait the 3 to 6 weeks to get it, and then they'll bring it to my shop. Try to pass it off as the real thing and ask like $40 or something for it. Or in the case of Earthbound, I've had people bring in fake copies and ask like $75, $100 for them because they, apparently they think it's extremely, extremely rare. I mean, it is, but and that's the number one thing you got to look out for. When you buy online, make sure that cartridges are 100% authentic. So that's the thing you really got to look out for, the number one thing. The second thing to remember is never overpay. Yeah, you got some people out there that think they have something worth a lot of money, and they'll put the highest price on it based on what they saw on eBay or Amazon. Don't fall for that. Now, as a gaming store, I understand, you're trying to find the best bargains. Like, if you didn't already know, I own a gaming store. I understand you're trying to find the best bargains, so I try to put them as cheap as possible. I give my customers a fair trade-in buying value, but I also try to be fair to the customers who are buying. So I completely understand you're looking for bargains. Now, let me tell you something. And this is, I don't know how to explain it. Let me just go into it. There is a gaming store about 2 or 3 towns over from where mine is. And they go exactly by whatever eBay says, which is a big no-no. See, that's not really being fair to your customers when you sell your stuff exactly at eBay price. If they were going to buy it at eBay price, they would go on eBay and buy it at eBay price. But not saying that you shouldn't check out all gaming stores. I mean, of course, my gaming store has some of the best prices in my entire region. But I think you should give them a try, and if they're pretty cheaply priced, you should buy them from there. If not, I'd say skip them, but that's just my own opinion because I'm kind of what we would call a El Cheapo gamer. And the third most important thing to remember when you're hunting out in the wild for retro games, especially CDs and cartridges too, condition. If you are, if you're not playing, you're buying it to play, then you're buying it to collect. Condition is one of the most important things to remember. Now, some other places that you might want to check out, which I recommend, yard sales, where I live this time of year, yard sales are just now coming to a close, and of course, thrift stores. Thrift stores definitely. Those are, year-round, so you can go in and see if they have any gaming goodies. Now, the one place that I go to every so often, but don't really like to check out much, is like Goodwill stores. It used to be a couple years ago you could get some pretty good stuff from Goodwill stores, but now they're just pretty much anything gaming or console related. If it's good, they send it off to their website that's like similar to eBay, which I've never used Goodwill's like bidding site, which I think is really unfair, to be honest. I mean, sure, you can get some good deals, but that, anybody can go from around the country and bid on this stuff, and that takes that stuff out of your local area. And, it kind of bugs me in a way. But, they get the stuff given to them free. They can do whatever they want with it. Whatever. And I guess the same goes for some thrift stores, but a lot of them don't use, the internet to sell their stuff. Now, there is one local thrift store that I know of. It's ran by an organization, and they'll often take stuff that's worth money and put it on eBay and sell it. And I think that's kind of unfair because that takes it away from, from everyone else. Plus, it's being, sent across the country, and nobody has a chance to, locally to get their hands on it. So, whatever. But yard sales, you can usually find a pretty good deal. I mean, occasionally I'll come across one that they'll sell their stuff for eBay price. But a majority of them usually will sell them pretty cheap. Mostly, this is real funny, grandparents. Grandparents don't know what they have. I've bought some pretty good stuff from grandparents in the past. And they just want to get rid of the stuff. They're like, oh, my grandkids played with this in 1995. And they just want to see it gone, get rid of the clutter. So yard sales are pretty good for picking up certain gaming finds, mostly cartridges. Now, as a PS1 collector, it's a little hard because I can't find a lot of them in mint condition. Most of them you find, the disc has light scratches. I have found quite a few mint condition ones, which I've added to my collection, but most of the time you'll find them in the cases are like cracked or something. No big deal, they can be replaced, but the game inside is the most important part that you want to try to get in mint condition. Now, flea markets. I haven't brought that up yet. Flea markets could potentially be a gold mine for finding video games, especially retro. You'll find some new occasionally, just people want to get rid of them. Actually, when I started my store several years ago, actually more than several years ago, almost a decade ago, I started in a flea market. And originally I started out selling just odds and ends, and then I moved into personal computers, PCs, fixing them up and selling them. This was probably like circa 2011, 12, 13, around that time. And then I eventually went into selling PC games, which were still selling pretty decent. And then when that market fell off, I got into video games. And that's when I really found a lot of good deals. Especially back then, I was buying the reselling. I wasn't really collecting much because, I was running a store, had to have stock. And you could find some really good stuff in flea markets, especially if you're a collector. I mean, there's a lot of good potential there of stuff that you could find. When I was at a flea market, when I sold, I used to. That's when I really started collecting games. I used to buy PS1 games, and they would sit there, I'd play them, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start collecting these, because I was getting them for like $1, $2 here, and I built up my collection pretty fast over a period of about 3 months. But of course, with PS1 games, I've come to learn it's a waiting game. It is absolutely a waiting game. You kind of just have to find it. It's getting to the point that now I'm starting to find stuff that I've already got in my collection, and I think it's just, mostly sports games. I try to, every time I see a sports game that I don't have, I grab it up, add it to the collection so I can mark that one off my list. But it's getting harder to find retro games. Not so much because of like retro stores grabbing them up or online resellers grabbing them up. Just it's for the fact that they're either lost, destroyed, sitting in storage somewhere, or somebody is holding on to them. But if you have a local flea market, check it out. Just watch your prices, because some of them will sell at retail. For example, Castlevania, a mint condition copy. If you're buying it as a collector, don't pay more than $20 for it, because, that's kind of the limit on that. And Ocarina of Time, don't pay more than $20, $25. I'm just going to throw a few out there and tell you, what you're seeing on screen. I'll just pick out a few here. Mario Kart 64, don't pay more than $25 for. And Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Don't pay more than $40 for a copy. These are mint prices. If they're less than that, don't pay them. Like if the label's ripped off Super Smash Bros., don't pay no more than $10 for it. Like seriously, if somebody's got $40 on a copy, it's all grungy and has the label ripped off, $10 is the limit on that. Don't pay more than that. And Super Mario RPG, it typically goes in mint condition, $30-$35. That's as of the posting of this video. It's November 2019. If you're watching this like 2 or 5 or 10 years from now, the prices have either gone up or they have bottomed out. So just use your judgment. So that is just a basic guide, I guess you could say, to hunting for video games in the wild. I don't know what I'll call this video yet as of this recording. It's just kind of a gathering of my thoughts. As somebody told me, I had one friend, he was watching me one day as I record these, and he said, you know, you really have a Jeff Goldblum-like attitude to things. I'm like, yes, I do. No, seriously. He's like, you remind me of Jeff Goldblum. I'm like, why? He's like, the way you sometimes talk and just say the most random things in the middle of your recordings, stuff that some of it's relevant, some of it's not. And I go, that's the hook, that keeps people interested. He's like, oh. And then he just got up and left. So that's a basic guide to get you started. You can take my advice. You don't have to take my advice. That's up to you. You may have different opinions than I do. Of course, all the information I gave you, this applies to mostly the United States. If you live somewhere like, say, Canada or the UK or anywhere else in the world, Australia, Germany, you have different rules for game collecting. Oh, Japan too. I got a story about a guy who went to Japan and lived there for 5 years and collected a bunch of Japanese games. But I'm going to save that for a different story just because I thought it was really interesting. Let's just say he has some stuff that's worth quite a bit of money if a U.S. collector was to get a hold of it. So that'll be an episode I'll save for another time. So, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out if you do. It keeps me motivated and keeps me making more videos. Don't forget... I'm tongue-tied. Don't forget to hit the bell to get notifications of when we do more awesome videos. If you have any suggestions for videos, tell us in the comments down below. I like suggestions. Honestly, after 90-some episodes... If you haven't watched our other ones, go back and watch them. I'm starting to just now run out of ideas of fresh new things to talk about because everything else has already been talked to death about. So if you have any suggestions, tell us in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. I think I've already mentioned all that. And until next time, I will see ya.